Talking about Jose Alvarado while we were waiting to go live, and the first comments in the chat just Jose Roberto, Jose
Yeah.
Grand Theft Alvarado. These are good ones, dude.
I
Just
mean,
killed us yesterday.
we got so much right yesterday, but Alvarado really hurt, having way too much of him. And yeah, he was terrible before he got hurt. So it's like, I don't know, insult to injury, I guess. But hey, beauty about NBA DFS is we're on to the next one, right?
Yeah, now Alvarado's out for 6 weeks, so that's going to make the Pelicans even more fun. I haven't looked at the slate tomorrow. Maybe they play tomorrow, but save that for later. How's everyone doing? It's Tuesday, November 12th, and the NBA. What are they? What the NBA Cup? It's not the in-season tournament. It's officially the NBA Cup starts today. First of all, Nick, how we doing?
Good, man. Good. Like I said, last night Alvarado killed me and a bunch of our friends here in chat. So yeah, happy to bounce back. And it's a good sized slate with some interesting spots for value. So I'm looking forward to it, man. Doing pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, we're doing good. I mean, feeling good every night. It's just little things like Alvarado or not hitting upload on FanDuel are really preventing me from winning tournaments. I would have shipped the other night, but
Oh
you have
no.
to click upload on FanDuel. You don't have to do that on DraftKings. You just double click the file. But so yeah, the NBA Cup starts today. Does this overall? Does this affect anything for you on the DFS slate?
Not particularly. I mean, most teams aren't running super deep rotations anyway. So yeah, I mean, it's nothing I'm really weighing all that heavily. I mean, most of these teams are trying to win most nights. Um, yeah, I don't really think there's anything we can quantify either way.
Yeah, maybe if like two of these teams are competing for the finals or something next week, we can
Yeah,
take a
yeah,
closer look at that. But today, I'm not making any adjustments for the NBA Cup. It is fun though. I think it's fun that they do
yeah.
that.
I like it. I think it's fun too.
What's
But
up, Jose? Who's Wallace from the Hawks, and why should we play him? This is a good starting point for the slate. So Trey Young is out. They are battered today. I mean, Dyson Daniels. He's not even showing up as chalk at his price, and I think this is correct. I'm surprised the field isn't going to Dyson more. I don't think he gets that big of a boost with Trey Young out. We're assuming Keaton Wallace starts projected for 51% ownership. We haven't projected for 27. I gave him 30 minutes, and that might even be a little bit low. So, I mean, what are we doing, Keaton Wallace? Are we just jamming him in?
I mean, I'm playing in ton of him, and I will say this: even if he doesn't start, and I'm not 100% sure he will, I'm pretty comfortable getting to him as value. He's just so cheap, and he's a rookie. They want to see what they have with him. And if the Celtics were to blow this team out, I think earlier in the day I was hopeful that maybe Tatum or someone would sit tonight. He's not. They're full go. But if this game gets out of hand, I mean, Wallace is still going to play more minutes than he usually does. He's had some really solid games whenever he's getting over 20 minutes, and yeah, I think how many do we have before here? Certainly more than 20. Yeah, 27. So if he's playing 27 minutes, he's probably finishing with similar fantasy points as a fantasy point per minute player. And it's a bad matchup, but he's going to be on the floor regardless of how this game plays out. So I like him here.
So, looking at the previous game, Keaton Wallace was a six man, and he played every. It was either so two of Trey Young, Dyson Daniels, or Keaton Wallace was on the court at all times. So basically, he played the minutes that Trey Young and Dyson Daniels didn't. And so even the 30 minutes that I'm kind of over projecting him for here, that might even be a little bit low. And if he starts, it just he's such a good fantasy producer. I know you didn't play preseason much, Nick, but this was one of our biggest targets every single night just because he puts fantasy points on the board. So Keaton
Yeah.
Wallace, 51% is actually probably a little bit low if we get confirmation he's starting. I know it's a super tough matchup, but I think you mentioned he probably plays blowout run because they just don't have the bodies to not have him out on the court.
Right. And yeah, I mean, there is a world where Daniel starts and then it's Matthews, Reassure, Johnson, Capella, like I said, but he's still going to play more point guard minutes than I think anyone here. Daniels is fine, but his price is up. I mean, if you're looking for value, I think Keaton Wall is probably as good as you're going to do tonight.
And then the other big player on this team, Jalen Johnson, actually gets a monster usage boost without Trey Young on the court. It's kind of a small sample. It's only 90 minutes this season. Just it's good to note, though, that Keaton Wallace was on the court for most of those minutes. So this is pretty accurate to the usage today. Again, small sample, but Jalen Johnson, 8,600 on both sites at pretty modest ownership. I mean, again, tough matchup, but I'm pretty interested in at least being around the field on him.
Yeah, I would say coming in around the field makes a lot of sense. We're looking at a football spread here, though, 16 points last I checked, which is absolutely ridiculous. Boston plays really well at home. I mean, I can see this game getting out of hand quick, which is fine for a lot of these Celtics because they're going to be the reason the game gets out of hand. They're going to be putting up numbers as we've seen them do in three quarters. But if the Hawks are struggling to put points on the board, I don't know. It could be tough for Johnson to pay off that price tag. Like you said, though, if this game stays even relatively close, it is a regular season game, NBA Cup or not. So things happen. Like it could be much closer than we expect. But at the same time, I mean, to pay that much for someone who might miss his last stint or two is a little bit concerning. So I like him. The field isn't going too crazy though, so I'd get to about where the field's at, like you said. I think that's fine.
Matthews is showing us a better value on FanDuel than Wallace. Yes, that's how it's showing right now. But we both have them projected for 27 minutes, and I would be really surprised if Keaton Wallace didn't play 30 plus today. So whatever, let's say we give Keaton Wallace 30 minutes. That's 1/9 of his projected minutes, right? So just multiply this by an extra 11%, add an extra 11%, and all of a sudden his value score is closer to Garrison Matthews.
Yeah, and yeah, Matthews super scoring dependent. Obviously, Wallace is doing much more than that. So yeah, I'm with you.
What is the NBA Cup? They called it the in-season tournament last time. It's just a fun thing they do. The only difference it makes is I think one extra game, which is the championship game for the winning team. So it gives us an extra like one game slate on that day. But like we said, we'll get more into it as the cup goes on, I guess.
Yeah, it's marketing more than anything. I mean, this time of year, usually people are like, "Oh, until Christmas, the regular season doesn't matter," which is kind of true. Like this is part of their way to combat that. And all the teams have like different home courts. Like I don't know, they really dress it up and try to sell it as its own thing. But it's marketing more than anything at the end of the day.
Yeah, I will say the court designs are super duper cool. So definitely watch more games than usual this week if you're not watching all the games already. Uh, so before we move on from this game, this is a 15.5 point spread. We talk a lot on this stream about we don't want to project blowouts. This is pretty close to where we can project that. So the one adjustment that I did make is I boosted Peyton Pritchard for Boston. I'm not getting too much of the other guys, just a few percent of the starters. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it, but like at the same time, I mean, we've seen Tatum, Brown, and White kind of get there in just 3 quarters if they are blowing a team out. Like Tatum's had some crazy games this year where the Celtics are playing teams out of the gym and he's getting 60 plus fantasy points. So I'm fine mixing them in as kind of lower own like pay up options. There's a lot of chalk tonight that's value. Giannis super popular. Don't really want to fade Giannis to get to any of these Celtics, but in lineups maybe you could fit one of them with him. I think it's a pretty good idea. So way to get different, wide range of outcomes, but it's not going to be anything new if one of these guys is the top scoring play on the board even in just 3 quarters.
And then last thing I'll mention on this game, Zachary Risisher, maybe it adjusted, but someone sent me his projection from one of the other sites, and it was insane. He's going to be more than 2% owned tonight. The model is telling us he is just not a good value play today, so I don't think I end up with any, even given this situation with Trey.
Yeah, he's not a priority for me. Like him and Daniels, like if I'm landing on them, I'm fine with it. But like they're not in my first build if I'm hand building.
Well, I do want to make sure I get a few percent of Daniels. Like he's not a guy I'm targeting to get like 20% in my exposures, but I do want to make sure that it's not zero.
Yeah, I feel you.
Who's the best pay down center? What do you got, Nick?
There's a few to talk about here. I mean, we're waiting on some news, right? Nurkic is questionable. If he's out, Grayson Allen's going to look really good. I love Goga over on DK at 5,300. Pretty tough to get away from him there. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it gets a little bit dicey. I see a lot of people going to Lopez with Lillard out. I don't necessarily know that that's the biggest boost for him. It's Goga for me right now, but we're still waiting on not only Nurkic news, but DeAndre Ayton news. But I'll let you shout out Smitty, who has a very hot take here in this front court if Ayton does indeed sit, right?
Yeah, so Goga is currently my second highest exposed center on the slate. Number one that I have basically in almost every lineup right now. Very risky. Nick alluded to it. Ayton is questionable. Late day questionable tag with a finger. So it's not an illness, but late day Q tags are never good. I think people are going to kind of think about Robert Williams, but he's capped at 20 minutes. Even if Ayton's out, he's not playing more than 20 minutes. Donovan Clingan, he's also the min price, projected for 1% ownership currently, 15 minutes. If Ayton's out, he's going to be the starting center. He's going to absorb most of these minutes in the usage, and we're not going to get that news until after a lot of the games have kicked off. A lot of people are not going to be able to swap on to Clingan. And so I think he's just one of the best risks that you can take in like that I've seen all season. So I'm playing a ton of Clingan. let's say Aiton's in, it's still possible Klingon gets there in regular time, and hopefully you have exposure to a couple players in the late games that maybe you can make a swap. But yeah, so this is the edge I'm taking today. I'm playing a ton of Klingon, and I'm just going to hope Aiton gets ruled out after lock.
Yeah, man. I mean, if it plays out that Aiton is out, then you're going to be in a really good position with that. But I totally get it. And like I said, I mean, we're also kind of waiting on this Nurkic Plumlee news too. So if you kind of have some maneuverability with your center spots going into 9 p.m., I think that makes a lot of sense. As much as I do like Goga, I think he's probably one of the safer values on DK. A little bit pricier on FanDuel. I will bring up John Collins, who obviously has power forward eligibility as well. Walker Kessler is out tonight for the Jazz, so in all likelihood, we're going to see Collins at the 5. I mean, he's been really solid even coming off the bench. I will just say, just in case, there is a world in which maybe Drew Eubanks gets to start at center. Not something I'd be doing if I was coaching in the NBA, but at the same time, I mean, it wouldn't be the first start at center of his career. I'm hoping and thinking it's Collins. And again, you could play him at power forward. So to answer the center question, I still think it's Goga. But if you can wait till that late game, Nurk's going to look good if he's in, because Durant's out. So you're getting extra usage there. If he's out, though, you could go down to Plumlee, upgrade something else. Maybe have that mixed in with some of this Portland exposure like you're talking about. You could get to some Klingon as well. But really need news on these late games as far as the front courts go.
Yeah, and with the with the Klingon thing too, if we don't get that news on Aiton before Phoenix, Utah, I'm probably going to swap off some of that. I'm not going to go into that game blind with all that Klingon, but just an option to swap off if you go into log with a ton of Klingon. Since we're already on centers, I just sorted by projected ownership. Giannis, number 1 owned player. He's my highest owned player today too. Nurkic, Bam, Cat from the guys we haven't talked about. I think you mentioned you like Bam.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you don't love Bam here today. Jimmy Butler's out for the Heat. Obviously, that's going to create kind of a vacuum for usage for some of these guys. Bam's already been really solid, but good matchup here. Durant is back for the Pistons, but I'm not really worried about him on the defensive end all that much against someone like Bam, who can kind of stretch the floor. He is going to be popular. No longer has the power forward eligibility, unfortunately, but if we're just talking about pure center, I think he's my favorite today. I will say Giannis is probably my favorite pay up today, but to me, I'm just putting him as a forward in my head. I'm more on FanDuel. He's forward only over there, but really, really like both of them tonight. Bam, especially with Butler out. And yeah, Giannis has no Lillard, so a little bit extra usage for these guys.
Yeah, I'm with it. And with Giannis, it's like, I think the only better matchup would be against Washington, maybe. But maybe this is even better right now with how battered they are. Emmanuel Quickly's out for at least another week. Torn UCL in his elbow.
Yeah,
and he's still
UCL.
dealing with the other stuff. Like, dude, I want that guy to succeed. But yeah, Giannis, I mean, I have 99% right now. That probably comes down a little bit, but I'm going to play all the Giannis, right?
Yeah, I don't know how you don't. Again, we do have Luka on this slate, but I don't know. Giannis has just been so much more consistently hitting value for these 11K price tags. Excuse me. And again, with the extra usage we're getting from Dame out, we also have to keep in mind that Middleton's been out as well. So really, I mean, he should be able to do whatever he wants here. Toronto's defense has been shaky, especially in the front court. Should be a competitive enough game. Again, the Bucks haven't been playing that well, even with Dame in, so I'm not really worried about them blowing anyone out anytime soon. Absolutely love him here, and yeah, if the field's getting 50%, I want to be over that for sure.
So you mentioned Luka. Him and Giannis are kind of always in their own tier up here, then Jason Tatum, then everyone else. So Luka's still projected for around 20% ownership, as bad as he's been. If he was under 10, I'd be more interested in getting over the field. But with these ownerships the way they are, I just want to play more Kyrie Irving. He's been a complete stud while Luka's been terrible, and he's coming in for pretty low ownership at a really reasonable price.
Yeah, and I mean Luka's terrible by Luka's standards. Like if he was priced where
Yeah.
Kyrie is, I'm sure we'd be loving to get to him. But
Yeah.
no, it's true. I mean, for whatever reason, they just haven't moved the price on Kyrie. I think people are kind of waiting for Luka to take back over as kind of the alpha in that offense, but we just haven't seen it. I mean, missing layups, defense is really scheming against him. It's opened the door for Kyrie. I don't know. I'd be remiss, I guess, if I didn't bring this up. I don't really have a ton of interest in Klay Thompson tonight, but this is like the ultimate revenge narrative we're hearing from everyone today, right? So he's been pretty bad shooting his last few games. Maybe takes a few extra shots here tonight, but at 20% on FanDuel, 13 on DK, I'm probably going to be under that. But yeah, I'm fine with Luka here, but I'm with you. I think I'd rather get to Kyrie.
They asked Klay Thompson what he thought about. They're giving out like I don't know, boat captain hats at the
Oh
Golden
yeah,
State
I
game in
saw
honor
that.
of Klay Thompson, and he seems so bothered about it. He's like, "It's cool for the fans, I guess." And it's like, dude, can you just smile one time? You have a great
Yeah,
life.
man. He used to be so likable, and then like he got mad that he wasn't in like some all NBA list or something, and ever since then he's been kind of insufferable, just super petty. Like when they're losing to the Suns, and he's pretending he's counting his rings like that matters that day at all during that game. Like I don't know, man. He used to be such like a cool dude, and I don't know. I don't hate him, but he's gotten kind of corny. And yeah, tonight maybe we see that. Hopefully, he can let that fake hard exterior down and just kind of embrace what the Warriors fans are going to be given to him. Because yeah, I mean he is a legend there. They've won so much, and um, yeah, this is the first homecoming game.
Will he be any Goga? Yeah, I don't know if this was before we were talking about him, but we love Goga tonight.
Yeah, I gotta look at the FanDuel price. I know DK's better, but yeah, 63 at
I think
2%
it's fine.
owned. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not rushing to him, but it is a little crazy that he's not getting a little bit more love there. I know you only have the one center position, but he's been pushing value even in the 6K range, so I'm fine with it. But yeah, much better on DK where you can play two centers and he's 1K cheaper.
Yeah, and they're playing Charlotte, so
Yeah,
enough said.
yeah.
Colin, yeah, if Nurkic is out, then we're going to be interested in Plumlee. The one thing I'll say is Plumlee's price went up, but he should get the minutes. So look at that.
Yeah, he's been productive when Nurk has gone down. I'm fine with it. And again, Kevin Durant's out too, so you're getting even more of a boost. I will say Royce O'Neal off the bench, I'm fine with tonight. More so on DK. Again, it's like FanDuel's been more aggressive pricing these guys up. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about Suns, I guess, when we get to guards, but Booker Beal obviously make a lot of sense here as well.
Yeah, let's take a look at Philadelphia. So Joel Embiid, season debut. I don't know how. I thought he got suspended 3 games, but I didn't think they could count the suspension in the games that he was hurt. So I'm just blindsided that he's playing today. But we haven't projected for 30 minutes. His OF index is the same as Jared McCain's. I don't think he's at all a DFS play. The question is, who else are we interested in from Philadelphia?
I mean, not much else. We do get to keep in mind that Maxi's still out, so I don't know. If you want to get to Oubre, Lowry, maybe Paul George, I'm fine with it. But it's a terrible matchup against the Knicks. This game is one of the lower totals on the board, and me being back is going to take up a lot of usage. And while we don't want to pay up for him when he's limited, his presence is enough to kind of drive down what these others are capable of. So I'm really not on much of Philly at all today. Like they're probably one of my least exposed teams.
Yeah, I think the only player that I actually have exposure to is Jared McCain. He's projected for 1% and 2% ownership. I'm not too far over that, but the minutes have been really good the last couple games. Not sure how that's going to change with Embiid back. It really shouldn't affect it too much because they kind of need someone to handle the ball, and Jared McCain's been great. So, I mean, 17 and 18 shot attempts. Yeah, that's going to change with Embiid, but 4,300 I still think is a fine price to take some shots. It's just a question of, we have other better guard value at the position.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought him up though. That is someone worth working in. And for what it's worth, I mean, Lowry's been playing 30 minutes a night. So has McCain. They both have. So sure. Embiid could eat into some of that. Obviously, it's going to eat more into guys like Yabusele and Drummond in the front court though. So good shout on McCain for sure. Definitely want to get some of that.
Man, a few years ago, 30-minute Kyle Lowry at 5,400 would be a lock.
More than a few, but yeah, it's true. I mean, he's been bad since pretty much they won the title. Like I don't know. It's been a while.
Any interest in Jalen Duren?
No. I mean, first game back, terrible matchup. At the price, I mean, it's not insane, but I don't know. I never really like to rush to play guys first game off an injury, especially at a loaded position like center. We're talking about Goga. I mean, in that same game, Bam is one of the best center plays on the board. And then we have all that late news we're waiting on. And if you considered Collins a center, Giannis a center, there's just so many options. So that type of risk where you're playing like a 1% own center, like he has to outplay so many different guys in different price ranges for that to be worth it. For me, I don't know. I'd just rather get different elsewhere.
So a lot of times, if I got a few percent of Duren in my exposures, and today he's a guy I'm not targeting, I'd usually be okay with it. But
Yeah.
today I get 0% in my 150 set, and it's a tough matchup. I mean, minutes,
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think it's a good DFS play.
Yeah, and also we got to keep in mind too, when he was playing before he got hurt, Stewart missed a lot of that time. Stewart could cut into his upside a bit, so that's something just to keep an eye on. I'm not really on either of them tonight, but for what it's worth, a lot of those Duran games early in the year did come without Stu.
And with that said, it's not 0% that he goes off tonight. It's just it's
No,
very low.
yeah, yeah.
Just trying to protect us. Portis, I think you kind of mentioned he gets a little bit of bumped usage with Damian Lillard out, but for me, it's just I can't fit him into my lineups today.
Yeah, it's when Giannis is out that we more want to go to Portis because he really just plays that exact same role. Will he see more usage? Yes. But I mean, I don't know. If there's anything here, I guess maybe some AJ Green. If we're not talking about Giannis, he's had a few decent games. Obviously, probably going to be running the point a lot of the time here with Dame out. Um, Lopez, we mentioned you could mix him in with your other centers. I'm not getting there much. But I'm a big fan of Brolo, but yeah, tonight it's mostly just Giannis for me. Maybe a little AJ Green, not much else from the Bucks. Even though Dame does kind of create a lot of opportunity for others.
All right, I'm going to try to run through some of these questions we're a little behind on. Is Diabite too cute on FanDuel? Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I would go there right now.
Paul George still has a minutes restriction. Yeah, it's just so hard to get to anyone from this team except maybe McCain.
Yeah, I do want to say he played 33 last game. Like, I don't know how many more we're expecting than that. Like, a couple, but not a good matchup, and he's still expensive. So, not rushing there, but I think he's pretty much good to play 33 plus now, which is not much of a restriction.
Yeah, I will say the 7,600 on FanDuel, I wouldn't, I'm not playing FanDuel today, but I wouldn't mind if I had a few percent of that.
Yeah, it's not bad.
De Silva or Jaden McDaniels? Are there any other options?
De Silva. If I had to pick, it'd probably be De Silva, but I'm guessing there's something in that range we like more. Um,
Yeah, De Silva's a tough one for me. I get why he's appealing 4K. He's pulling, actually, that's more ownership than I was expecting him to pull. Good matchup against Charlotte if you're not playing Goga in that lineup, but the
yeah,
model is not picking up on him as a good value at his price.
I'd go Najee Marshall if you could find another 2 or 300. Still no PJ Washington for the Mavericks. He should be starting again. Not some like huge upside ceiling play by any stretch, but slightly more expensive than those guys and probably a lot safer.
And if it's got to be one of those two guys, the model is picking up on Jaden Daniels being solid value at 4K on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, he's been okay. I was thinking he'd be shooting more this year because they need him for spacing, and it really hasn't happened. It's just like Conley's taking more shots, but whatever.
Yeah, Colin nailed it. Yep, Jaden over De Silva. AJ Green projected to start at point guard.
Yeah.
This is some. Is it, that's right?
I mean, I haven't seen it officially, but that's who I've thought it would be all day.
Okay, so I mean, are we looking at him or Andre Jackson at all?
I'm fine with Green. Yeah, you can mix him in as value. I don't know. Should probably play close to 30 minutes. Um, Good enough matchup. I mean, if he's not great, I'm not going to be shocked. But at the same time, I mean, yeah, his role definitely changes here with Dame out. And they've been working him in as a starter anyway. So I like him.
So Smitty asked me if I'm getting to anyone on the Bucks besides Giannis, and I said I was getting to Ryan Rollins, and you replied WTF. Yeah, I might need to adjust that because I have, well, the model's picking up on Rollins as a better value at only 16 and a half projected minutes, 7 and 3% ownership. He's a flat min on DraftKings, basically the flat min on FanDuel. But yeah, AJ Green, assuming he starts, is definitely going to be the better play. Ryan Rollins is probably a little bit too deep.
Yeah, I definitely go to Green over Rollins, and I don't know. We haven't seen him as a regular part of the rotation. He is probably ahead of Delon Wright on the depth chart, um, but that's not a guarantee. And we know Green's going to be heavily involved here, so I'd rather just go to Green.
Well, on the first Buck slate that they said Ryan Rollins was going to be ahead of Delon Wright in the rotation, I played a bunch of him on that showdown. Played 12 minutes and put up 6 fantasy points. So
Ooh.
with Dame, that was with Dame in. So maybe with Dame out, he gets another run. I don't know. I will just say the model's picking up on it at 16 minutes, so it's still a pretty deep shot.
Yeah, I'm not rushing there.
Rozier.
Yes, yes, and again, I mean, we haven't seen a high ceiling from Terry, um, but I mean, with Jimmy out, I mean, they need guys to shoot. It's a good matchup. Detroit's defense isn't as bad as I think many thought they'd be, but they're still pretty bad. Hero's definitely my favorite Heat guard. favorite Heat play, not counting Bam. But Rozier at his price, a little bit cheap for what he's capable of. I think in cash games or single entry, if you're already getting pretty different, Rozier's like a good piece to like kind of make things work. Probably has a pretty high floor here in this matchup, but at the same time, I mean, it's been a long time. We were talking about this pre-stream since we've seen him spike a ceiling. Um, Much rather get to Hero and Bam, but yeah, Terry, if he fits, I'm fine with it.
And Courtney, I know you play on FanDuel. The 5,900 price, it's probably incorrect as bad as he's been playing. It's too low.
Yeah.
Trey Man out. I mean, I guess we can take a little bit closer look at Charlotte. It's just maybe with Chet out, maybe this might be the worst matchup to target people against now in the NBA, not OKC.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Miller's been amazing. So with Trey Man out, maybe that secures his minutes even more. Not that he needed it necessarily. I wasn't really looking at him yet, but this is enough for me to maybe get to a little bit more Brandon Miller again. Bridges is still out as well. Obviously, not a good matchup against Orlando at all, but they're kind of banged up too. So I'm fine mixing in some Miller if you think this game stays close. And yeah, a little bit too cheap. 6,600 on DK. Let's see on FanDuel. 7.5. Again, FanDuel's been so much more aggressive raising these prices, but DK's behind. I like Miller a lot on DK.
Yeah, I'm definitely cool with Brandon Miller. It's just with Trey Man out, their backup point guard is basically going to be shared by Brandon Miller and Cody Martin taking the ball up. So it's a good bump for B Miller, even in this tough matchup.
Agreed.
What's up, fellas? What's up, Heath? Good to see you.
What's up?
Mikal Bridges is playing back in his college town. If aren't they all?
Yeah, this whole team is. I mean, yeah, that's nothing new. I mean, that's not enough of a narrative for me. I think if you want to talk about Clay playing in Golden State, you can. But I mean, Bridges was on the Nets. They played in Philly a ton. I think they had a playoff series against them. Hart also from Villanova, Brunson. I mean, this is nothing new for most of this team. So I wouldn't look too deeply into that. I mean, at his price, Bridges hasn't really been great. Um, but again, as like a last piece in, he's fine. But that's not a narrative I'd have any sort of excitement for. It's not like he's going to see extra usage. He's playing next to a bunch of other Villanova guys.
Yeah, and while we're on the Knicks, Karl Anthony Towns was showing up with a pretty great model score again. Not quite as good as it was the other day. I wonder how much of that has to do with Embiid being back. But 8,700 projected for 18% ownership at what is kind of a weak center position today. I mean, we have Bam, Goga, maybe we have Klingon, but Cat, Jalen Brunson, are you looking to pay up for these guys?
Not Brunson right now, and it's more because I am interested in Cat. He's been kind of dominating the usage here. I mean, 30+% in most games this season. I think a lot of people thought Brunson would kind of be running things, but he's only gone over 30 once in his past four. But yeah, obviously Embiid not an ideal matchup. Embiid's limited though. Price increase for Towns is probably going to keep his ownership down, which is actually a good thing for you if you're playing tournaments. You wouldn't be playing him in cash or anything small field. So I like it. Yeah, definitely fine getting to Towns. Probably the best Nick play pretty clearly tonight.
Yeah, and I'll just mention Josh Hart. His price is coming up, but at the low ownership, I want to make sure I get at least a couple percent of him in my 150 set.
Yeah, another great floor play, generally speaking.
Rozier 5,900 on FanDuel. Yeah, it's just it's a misprice with Butler out. He's been playing bad, but it's still too cheap.
Yeah, I still prefer Hero, but you can play both of them in a lineup, and yeah, good matchup. No Jimmy is great for these guys.
Toronto Lowry was immaculate though. Colin, I like you, man.
Yeah,
Hope you show up in our chat every day. Who gets the bump with Walker Kessler out?
Collins first.
Yeah, John Collins. But we're not 100% sure he starts. Like Nick said, they could go Filipowski, which is what they did last time. I know you said Eubanks earlier.
No, they did Filipowski, I thought, with Laurie out.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be Eubanks.
Okay.
Which would be kind of goofy, but it would be revenge for Eubanks, former Phoenix Sun. Maybe it's the
big
Drew
revenge.
Eubanks game. Probably not. I like Collins. I think the biggest boost is for Collins.
Yeah, I think the ownership here is probably appropriate for this price. I'm looking at Lauri Markkanen because this is one of the lowest prices he's had in the last 2 seasons. He's banged up. He's been playing awful. Not the Lauri that we expect, but at 11% ownership on DK, even the 7,700 on FanDuel is fine as a GPP play. Are we looking at Lauri?
Yes, yeah, I think he's underpriced. Again, this matchup gets a little bit better too with KD out, who's actually a pretty solid defender on the wing. And I like Laurie here. I've been kind of touting him since he came back from injury. Hasn't really paid off yet, but the minutes are there, the usage is there. It's just he's kind of missing shots. But as he starts to find that stroke again, I think he's going to be underpriced. We'll see him over 8K again pretty soon. So, yeah, buy low.
Thoughts on Melton DK? Number one play on the model for value, projected for 20% ownership. He's going to be higher than 20% ownership after the ceiling game he had last game, but the 4,600 on FanDuel is perfectly fine too because he gets the extra point for steals. 4,200 on DK, it's incorrect. Steve Kerr said this is a starting lineup he wants to move forward with, and we only have him projected for 25 minutes, but that's enough.
Yeah, I mean, the ownership does scare me just knowing Steve Kerr can be like, oh, today's Gary Payton day, today's Moses Moody day. But since he said that this is the lineup he wants to run with, I'm a little bit more confident in going to Melton here. Pods did only play 15 minutes last time in that ceiling game. I think even with this being the lineup Kerr wants, Pods is going to be playing more than 15 minutes per night. So I don't know. I'd temper expectations, but again, it's tough to find value. So yeah, he's a good play. I mean, it's just the ownership gives me some pause for sure.
On Melton,
Yeah, 20 plus. And
I
you're
think
saying
it's
it's going to be
low.
even higher.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
he's a good play on paper. Like I get it. He checks all the boxes, but at the same time, I mean, are you going to be shocked if he sucks in this spot next to Curry? And I don't know.
No, but I just
Yeah.
look at the minutes projection, and I think he's mispriced. He should probably be around 5K if this is like if Kerr is telling the truth and this is the role that he's going to have.
Yeah, I mean, Kerr's the biggest liar since Pop, but I do tend to believe him. In cash games, I'd be playing him. I'll definitely probably match the field. I'll stay at this 20, not go over or under, but he's a good play for sure.
Seth Curry is sneaky good play with man out. I would look at him as a 1% deep shot because he it's not like he's going to be handling the ball in place of man. It's going to go to Cody Martin and Brandon Miller. So maybe he gets a couple more shot attempts, but he's not going to run the offense or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I'd rather get more Miller. Yeah, if you're desperate for a punt, it's not crazy. Uh, but yeah, he's a shooter. He's streaky. He has not been shooting well when he does get minutes, but I don't know. I don't hate it. I just don't recommend it.
How do we feel about Tyus Jones? I'm into all of the Phoenix guards. Tyus is the cheapest. His price is for sure incorrect. The ownership's modest. I think he's a good play.
Yeah, another guy who's going to see a boost in usage here, obviously with no KD. He's been kind of hitting value even with like sub 20% usage, and that's a good thing. A great matchup. Um, I'm playing a ton of Booker tonight, not as much Beal, but I do want to be over the field on Jones. I think he's going overlooked compared to some of these other guys.
And then two other guys popping up. Ryan Dunn is second in DK value after DeAnthony Melton. We have him projected for 21 minutes, 8% ownership, 3,500 on DK. I mean, model's telling us that we should like Ryan Dunn, so I made sure that I'm going to be over this 8%. Not by much. I'm not like jamming 50% Ryan Dunn, but 15% would feel comfortable.
Yeah, and if you have utility and you're kind of waiting for one of these centers to open up late, and it turns out that Nurkic and Aiton are in or something like that, Dunn is a player in that price range. If you can kind of find a way to get him again into utility, that I'm very comfortable with, who's very very cheap in these late games. And yeah, I mean, Grayson Allen coming off the bench, I imagine is going to look all right here as well. I prefer Dunn of those two. Um, I think both have upside here, but I don't know. Dunn seems to be the guy right now. It looks like he's probably going to start.
We mentioned Grayson Allen as like a GPP play last time, did not work out at all. And now today at 3,741 on FanDuel, he's projected for 30% ownership. This is dumb.
That's
I
too
don't
high.
I don't think this is good chalk. Like the other guys, I feel way more comfortable with Keaton Mitchell, just considering the way they score fantasy points. Like I don't think Grayson Allen's good chalk today. So watch him go off for 8 threes or 9 threes like he did all season last year.
Yeah, man, he's one of those guys. If you play him, he sucks. If you don't, he goes off. I'll have a few shares, but he's not going to be in
Yeah.
my bigger builds. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't have 0%. I don't want to fade a chalk cheap guy coming in at 30%, but I don't know. Hopefully I have around 10. We'll see.
Yeah, I'd replace a lot of that with Dunn if I can.
McCain or Melton last man in on DK. I would say Melton's minutes are more secure, but we saw Jared McCain might have the potential to play a few more minutes. So model says Melton pretty clearly.
Yeah, I think it depends on the rest of your build. Like, if you're already really weird, you got a few guys that are single digits. I would definitely go with Melton. He's way safer. But if you're already eating a ton of chalk and you want to make a pivot, I think McCain probably is the higher ceiling of the two. So probably a good play to make in tournaments, but it's risky. You're definitely taking a risk, but you're just trying to kind of go against ownership. But you mentioned McCain was getting some love too, right? Or no, no one's playing McCain. So yeah, I mean the logical play is Melton, but if you're already eating a ton of chalk, it's not a bad spot to pivot.
Do we think Wallace is a bust for tonight's value? I think he's great for tonight's value. It is a little discouraging that he's not like top of the model value at only 3,200. But like I mentioned earlier, we haven't projected for 27. I gave him 30 in my personal projections, and I still think he has a potential to play more because I don't think he can sit in a blowout. So I think Wallace is good. We know he's a good fantasy producer. Yeah, it's a tough matchup against Boston, but I think he's great.
Yeah, you mentioned he was a stud in preseason. I didn't play preseason like you said, but I've just been looking at his fantasy point per minute rate when he is on the floor. And this guy is definitely stuffing the stat sheet. I like him a lot. I think I'm pretty comfortable being very, very heavy on him here.
Dallas Golden State mini stack. I mean, yeah, I think that's great. I'll have a bunch of lineups with Melton and Kyrie in them. Maybe
Yeah,
Gafford.
that's one of the highest totals on the board, 235 points. It actually is the highest by more than 5 points. So whenever you're looking at the game with the highest total, I'm not a huge proponent for stacking on bigger slates, but those are the games to do it usually. So yeah, definitely with it.
We haven't really talked about Steph. He's been up and down. He had what, a 60 ball, a 19-point
Yep.
performance, and then another 60 ball. Models identifying him as pretty strong value at his price. Steph Curry is way up here. Modest ownership under 20%. I think he's a good GPP play, especially like for all the reasons Nick just said too.
Yeah, he's too cheap for what he's capable of. Again, you're not going to get him hitting 50 every single night like you will for some of these other guards that are priced up there. Like, honestly, Kyrie is more consistent than Curry is right now, but Curry spikes that ceiling way too cheap for what he's capable of doing, and that's what you're looking for in tournaments. He doesn't need to do it every night, just on the nights when you're chasing the top. So, definitely like Curry.
Booker's too pricey now. I disagree. I think this is probably the appropriate price with Kevin Durant out.
Yeah, Durant's out, so keep that in mind. Big, big bump.
I will say, like, I don't think that this is such a good price that he should be in this many of the field's lineups, but I really like Devin Booker tonight. I haven't projected very well. The model loves him. He's a good play. So I mean, this is kind of high, right? 32 and 43% ownership.
I mean, it's so logical. It's such a good matchup. But what's Beal? I mean, Beal
20.
only 18. Beal's more mispriced than Booker is, but
Yeah, they both
at
are.
the ownership, I like that a lot. But yeah, man, I mean, I think Booker's about where he should be.
Well,
Like 30, 40 makes sense to me with KD out. Like historically, that's gonna be a spot. Like
yeah, maybe Booker should be a couple hundred more. So it's like this whole team is still underpriced though.
yeah, like I this isn't always the way to do it, but I think back to when he was just the only guy there, like even when they had Chris Paul, like he was in the 95, even at times 10K range as kind of the alpha in that offense. And um, I don't know. Beal's there, obviously taking up a lot of usage, but he's gonna be better than the player he's been with KD on the floor, at least for fantasy.
D'Anthony Melton starting tonight. We're expecting him to. Yeah, Steve's curse said he would. AJ Green over Rollins. Assuming he's starting, then I think so.
Yeah, I just trust Green so much more.
Collins projected to start. I'm curious where you're getting these projected starters from. Let me know.
Yeah, I use a few different sites. I'm seeing Collins on one as well. I don't want to plug competitors, but yeah, he's the starting center where I'm looking right now. But again, I mean, if Nurk is out and they go Plumlee, they could go Laurie at the five, put Filipowski in at the four. But I think if they start another center, it's going to be Eubanks. But I think you go with Collins. I don't see why they have to bring him off the bench, but they have been.
So we did get news that Ryan Rollins is starting for Damian Lillard. Now,
Uh,
uh, you give me a
that
3K guy that's starting at probably low ownership, I'm going to be pretty interested. It's tough because he might not be a good fantasy producer, and I'm a lot more interested in the other 6 min price plays we have today. Uh, are you interested in Ryan Rollins now?
don't want to be, but I am. I just think Green's a lot better. I think he fits what this offense needs on the floor with Giannis a lot more than Rollins does. But here we are. But yeah, that cheap as the starting point guard. I don't know. You got to mix them in if we're being honest. I don't want to, but I think I have to.
Yeah, it's a good time to bring up this question. Joined late point guards. So let's take a look at the point guards. We know we have Keaton Wallace, sort by ownership. Keaton Wallace, Devin Booker has multi-position. I mean, point guards other than Keaton Wallace, who do we like? This actually doesn't look that great.
Hero, I love Hero here. He has point guard eligibility on both sides. Not the cheapest guy, but at the same time, with Butler out, I trust him more than Terry. Um, Other than that, you're right. It is pretty thin. Tyus Jones to me is way under owned, even at 15%. Happy to get to him.
Yep.
Kyrie, sub 10% on both sides. Point guard, shooting guard hybrid, but would be happy to play him at point guard here because shooting guard actually seems a little bit deeper. Dyson Daniels, if that game were to stay close against Boston, he's going to be a big reason for it. Coming off two huge games, definitely fine mixing him in. But yeah, you're right. It's not as appealing. And like for a slate where we're sitting here like, wow, I'm surprised center is not deeper for an 8-gamer or however many games it is. Point guard, kind of the same thing. So that kind of makes sense that Luke is starting to draw more ownership just because this is a thin position. Again, Curry, another guy with upside. But Hero, my favorite, if we're not talking about the true punt, Keaton Wallace.
SF advice. Let's take a look at small forwards real quick, and we'll build a dummy and get out of here. I mean, Grayson Allen, I just disagree with it. I get he's cheap, but I'd rather take the shot and go with like any other player.
Any other player might be harsh. Yeah, I'd rather go to Dunn. I think he's going to be way lower owned, similar upside, probably plays even more minutes than Allen. Allen can get hot and kill us, but not crazy about it. If you need to go value, I think Najee Marshall is probably one of the safer options, easier to get to on DK. 5K on FanDuel does feel a little bit bloated in terms of pricing. I'll throw Brandon Miller's name out there again, especially on DK. No Trey Man, no Bridges for them. Obviously, not a great matchup, but he's been tremendous lately. They're going to give him minutes even in games that pull out, in my opinion. They want to continue to get him as much time on the floor as they can. And then, yeah, Beal has small forward eligibility. I think Booker does on one of the sites, if not both, just on FanDuel. But, yeah, no Durant for the Suns. Everyone's going to the value there, but definitely Beal and Booker look great, too, if you're trying to stay kind of chalky at that position.
Franz Wagner with Banchero still out. Yeah,
Ooh,
it's like it's a good matchup, and I hate how much I'm getting. I'm over the field on this 15%, but we have enough value. He's not hard to fit in, and it's really good matchup.
The price gave me some sticker shock, but it is a tremendous matchup. He's been really solid. Very good call out. He's fine.
Do we like Royce O'Neal at 4,900 off the bench? Not so much.
I'm fine with it because he closes a lot of the time. Didn't quite get to 30 minutes the last two games. Takes a ton of threes, though. He can get hot. At 4,900, I'm okay with it, honestly.
Well, I will say the problem with him last time was that his ownership didn't adjust for him coming off the bench. He was still like 40% owned. Today, he's coming in for 4%. So at 4%, he's fine.
Yeah, on DK only, 5,800 on FanDuel is kind of egregious.
Why isn't anybody talking about Franz Wagner? Because he's just that guy showing up in our lineups today that we're like, sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's been great. It's a great matchup. Play Franz Wagner. We should probably have talked about him a little more than we did, if we're being honest. But yeah, absolutely love him here.
And then looking at Jalen Suggs, this ownership disparity is wrong. Like if 17% is appropriate on FanDuel, 3% is too low on DK. I know we're getting way better value at point guard on DK. But Suggs, I don't know if I'm going to get to him on DK. On FanDuel, he's probably pretty good at 7,200.
I mean, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, large field tournaments, I think you should get to him because just a week ago, I mean, this guy was pushing 50 fantasy points a night. He's not shooting the ball well. That's going to happen for guys. And as soon as he gets hot again, you're going to want him in your lineups. And when that happens, he's going to be underpriced because he's been playing terribly. So it depends on your kind of risk tolerance. Like if you would rather min cash than lose, probably don't get to a ton of Suggs. But if your goal is to win tournaments, Suggs does make a lot of sense. I think this is another buy low spot. Because he's been bad, but we know what he's capable of with Banchero out of the lineup.
Cunningham, yeah, I don't care about the bad matchup. He's under 9K, 5% owned. I think he's good.
Always, yeah. Cunningham until he's over 9K. I don't know how you just don't keep playing him.
Surprised no one's getting the ball with no Trey Man. I mean, LaMelo gets a slight boost, but it's just the game that LaMelo has to have tonight to get in the winning lineup over all the other values we have at the position. It just a lot of stuff has to go right for him. And so I don't mind getting some percent, like 12% is probably fine. But he's not like, man, I can't believe he's only 12%.
Yeah, the issue is Giannis looks so damn good here that most people are paying up for him. And then you have Booker, who's like 1K cheaper than Ball on both sides. So if you're starting there, it's really tough to fit him in. But yeah, I mean, he makes sense if you're not playing Booker. I think Ball's a pretty logical pivot if you have the extra salary. Can't call him a priority again because the pay ups are kind of clear here in terms of the obvious, like Giannis, Booker, etc. But yeah, he's a fine pivot. He's been solid. Not a great matchup, obviously, but at the same time, I mean, he's been hitting value. He's playing enough minutes, so
Kind of started filling in the dummy build here. I mean, for me, I think this is a starting point. Keaton Wallace, D'Anthony Melton, Giannis, and Batadze.
yeah, tough for me to argue with any of that. I mean, Melton gives me a little bit of pause, but at the price, I think it makes tons of sense. I think from there, I'd probably want at least one a Booker or Beal.
Let's
Um,
throw Beal since he has that small forward eligibility.
yeah, I'm fine with that.
6,300 at the other guard position.
Definitely want Beal.
Do we want to go for the kind of a Kyrie GPP play in our dummy? Tyler
Yeah,
Harrow,
yeah, I'm fine. Oh, I mean, Hero. I really, really like Hero. I would go Hero.
D'Anthony
And if you could
Melton,
also fit Kyrie, feel free. But I do want Hero in most builds.
do Kyrie Harrow. Leaves us 3,300 at the forward position. uh, yeah, we're not doing
Hmm.
that. So let's try it with Tyler Harrow at the guard spot, and leaves us 5,800 for two positions. I mean, we can play guys like Brandon Miller, John Collins. Let's plug in John Collins since he's popular. 5,300. I mean, there's not much to love here, but switch around a couple
Gafford,
guys. Who?
yeah. What's his? Not Gafford actually. Lively's back tonight. I'd probably go Reed or DiVincenzo in that range if I had to. But we might get news again that Nurk's out. You could go with Plumlee or Aiton's out. Go with one of those centers for Portland. But
Say if we find another 100 to get to Tyus Jones, but uh, so that was like the dummy. That was like kind of the responsible thing to do. If you want to take a mega risk with me tonight, and blame Smitty when this doesn't work, it was his idea to begin with. Donovan Clingan at the utility. I mean, we can play like Cade Cunningham, still have 7K left for Josh Hart.
yeah,
Very risky. Better if you have exposure to these last two games so you can kind of swap off. Any Anthony Edwards love? Sure.
yeah, Edwards is almost the exact same conversation we'll have with Lamelo. Like he looks great here. It's just there's other pay ups that we're kind of getting to more. But I would rather get different with some of these pay up exposures than I would with some of the chalk values. So yeah, definitely mixing some Edwards.
And then just to show FanDuel a little bit of love here at the end of the show. Highest exposed guys. I mean, I don't think I have a problem with any of these guys. Davion Mitchell's is high because Quickly's ruled out, and it's the one mispricing that FanDuel made today, so that seems great.
Wow, yeah, I didn't see that before the show. That's good to see. Yeah, I mean it's tough to argue with anything here if we're being honest. Maybe again, just Grayson Allen might be overowned. Um,
Brooke
but yeah,
Lopez.
yeah, Lopez I like, but I don't see how he's getting that much love with some of the other options we have at
Yep.
center.
Well, we appreciate you guys watching today. Uh, let me see who's in the Discord right now. They're probably it's Smitty. He's about to start. Probably started already. Instructions to join that are in the description below. Nick, thanks for being here today. I think we're going to ship a tournament tonight. We just got news. Derek Lively will play today. It's the last bit of news. So, anything you want to mention before we leave?
Nope, just keep an eye on those late games and enjoy the NBA Cup.
Yeah, have fun, guys. Go Donovan Clingan. Thanks.